Hello and welcome to the first episode of SCI GUYS, the show where we talk about the crazy, weird and wonderful stories from the science world. I'm Corry, and as always I'm joined by my co-hosts Jamp and Luke Cutforth.
Hi.
And less excited, please, guys.
I'm very excited to be
I am very excited.
Yay!
This week we'll be taking on the very serious topics of human testing and downing shots.
Sorry, what?
Human testing and downing shots.
But I thought we were talking about burps.
No,
I burped in the prep for this, and he said, "Oh, funny, because we're actually talking about burps today."
There's a little bit of burping.
Okay, exciting.
A little bit of burping, yeah. As recently as the 1980s, no one knew the cause of stomach ulcers.
What?
Yeah, right? Ridiculous.
What is the cause of stomach ulcers?
Well, we'll find out today, won't we, Luke?
You sounded so like, oh, what?
Those
How could
idiots.
Those idiots
Anyway,
back at the 80s.
no,
How
what
could
causes
they?
them?
This is the guy. This is the story of that guy who gave himself stomach ulcers. He tested on himself.
That's it.
Yes, I love this story.
The majority of doctors just wrote them off as a result of a stressful lifestyle or eating too much spicy food. And it wasn't until Barry Marshall and his research partner Robin Warren provided their new hypothesis by quite unconventional means, testing on themselves. They tested on themselves.
It's this old time in science where everyone just works stuff out by just experimenting on themselves.
This was 1984.
Yes. It's
Wacky
2019.
times.
It's like a quarter of a century ago. Come on.
So Barry Marshall was born in 1951 in Kalgoorlie.
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 Western Australia.
Yeah, near Perth.
Yeah.
Yeah. I thought you'd like this one.
Yeah,
They're all Australians. Obviously, they test on themselves. So as a GP, he realised around about 50% of his patients were undiagnosable. And that was... What's funny about that?
He needs to go back to school.
The way you put that, it made it sound like 50% of his patients, like for some reason, you could never diagnose them with anything. They're weird, mystical creatures who never give up any of their information.
No.
Maybe they were just healthy.
I can't find anything wrong with you. Therefore, you are undiagnosable.
That's it, though. So people would come in and they couldn't be diagnosed, and doctors would say, well, you're clearly just faking it. That's a fake illness.
They didn't come in with nothing, and then the doctor go, you're undiagnosable because you have nothing.
Basically, there's just people, we don't know what's wrong with them at all. So we try and...
That's how I feel about James.
That's something like me.
I love how Corey's trying to tell a story.
I can't get a word out. So we don't know what's wrong with them at all. So doctors would just send them home and say, well, you're clearly faking it, or send them to a psychiatrist.
Sounds like my therapist.
Are you okay?
Yeah, I'm fine.
You good?
Well,
okay.
Well,
apparently not.
my therapist
yeah.
says.
Right, I'm ignoring you two now. So
That's what my therapist says.
So Barry Marshall,
Yes.
he's a GP and realizes that he can't diagnose a lot of his patients, and that really winds him up, as it would me and I assume everyone. So a lot of people came in with gastritis and stomach ulcers. Do you guys know?
Wait, but he knew that it was gastritis and stomach ulcers, so he could diagnose that.
Yeah, but he couldn't. That's like saying, I know what the symptom is.
Right.
That's like saying,
okay.
oh, you've got a cough.
Cause.
Yes. I diagnose you with a cough, Luke.
Yes. Okay.
Yeah. So...
Undiagnosable.
We just don't know what's wrong. There must have been a time though, right? Way back when coughing, no one knew what it was. It was just
What the fuck's up with you?
What is going on?
I often think about how scary the old world must have been, where like the first guy to see rain must have been so scared. First guy
to fall asleep,
to realize that night was coming.
Oh my
god. Oh god, where's that thing that kept me warm all day? Right, okay, well, off we go to eternal darkness.
Now I can't see. One of my senses is just gone for this entire time. So basically, just a quick recap on what a stomach ulcer is. So it's like
an ulcer.
It's an ulcer. Yeah, it's in your stomach.
Oh,
thank you.
Yeah.
Wow.
Well,
it's a good job you got a degree in bio.
This is not my area.
Learn something new every day.
The reason it's an issue, I'm not going to explain it. The reason it's an issue is that there's stomach acid in your stomach. It's got a pH of 1.5 to 3.5, and it's hydrochloric acid, which is really strong. It would
hot, bit spicy.
You could digest your own organs with your stomach acid.
Yum.
Wow.
Well, that makes
How
sense.
does your stomach not get digested by stomach acid?
Mucus.
Ew.
There's like a...
That's not the answer I wanted.
Bogies.
Yes, snot. Yeah, so there's a lining of mucus in your stomach which basically stops your stomach acid just destroying the rest of your body.
Okay.
When you've got an ulcer and you eat food, that kind of washes away the stomach acid for a bit, and then it comes back and just sits on the raw ulcer, and it's really, really sore. So obviously people were in a lot of pain. And in the 1880s, they developed a surgery to stop this. They just cut off the bottom of your stomach.
I was going to say, just cut out your stomach.
Yeah, you just cut it out. I love that solution to something. Oh, you've got a problem with it. Let's just get rid of it, and then just
the whole stomach.
No, not the whole stomach. They just cut off the bottom of it.
Right.
Just a little bit.
You don't need the bottom. That's fine. And then they just reattach that to the intestine. That wasn't really effective.
Did it cure it? I mean, it must have done if that's where. But why would the stomach ulcers only be on the bottom? Is that because, is that because
Gravity.
only the acid is at the bottom?
Yeah, I think that's just where the majority of the ulcers were. So they cut off most of that, and it helped a lot of people. Not all of them. Some of them became what they called gastric cripples, and they just didn't have any appetite.
Wow. And then they died?
No. Well, some people died, but these people didn't necessarily die.
Right.
These kind of surgeries, not necessarily this exact surgery, but these kind of surgeries happened up to the 1980s.
Wow.
You think of like the 1980s being like, yeah, that's recent enough.
I don't really think about it as recent enough because I wasn't alive there. But yeah, I know what you mean.
Yeah. I mean, I wouldn't think of the 80s being backwards. Like Back to the Future was in the 80s.
I don't know.
They had time travel then.
Oh, God. I have no
Like,
reference.
I think of my life as like the start of time. So like the 80s is before time in my life
Bit
experience.
self-centered, isn't it?
Shut up, you know what exactly what
The
I
land
mean,
before
Corry.
time.
nothing was important till I existed.
To me, yes, that is true.
So basically, up until this point, they thought it was just down to stress and a psychosomatic sort of thing, and they prescribed antacids, which get rid of the acid for a bit.
But then you can't digest anything.
Not all, no, it gets rid of excess acid.
An antacid?
Right, antacid.
It's an American thing.
No,
Antacid.
antacid, like anti-acid.
Yeah.
Oh.
Is that just an alkaline?
Not acid from
Yeah.
ants.
Yeah.
Okay. No, not acid from ants.
No.
That would be a tiny amount of acid.
I know, that's what it's, how many ants
Get
would you
lots
need?
of ants. Actually, antacids, that's what a lot of ant stings are made from.
Really?
Acids and alkalines. So I think
I wasn't that wrong.
so.
Well,
Bee
you were.
stings. This is a complete
The fact that you
departure.
mentioned something that does exist doesn't mean you were correct.
You put two words together and it happened to be a thing.
Acid.
Antacid.
That must come
That's
from
like
ants.
a horse.
In fact, you didn't put two words together. I put them
What's
together.
that horsepower? Does that come from horses?
Yes.
Yes, it does.
Yeah. See? It's not that bad of a question.
Stop
Yeah.
talking.
Stop. So bee stings are like acids, and wasp stings are alkaline.
Wow.
So if you get stung by a bee or a wasp,
Like a bullet ant, that's antacid.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Learn
Or
something new every day.
alkaline. So yeah, antacids kind of got rid of the acid and got rid of the pain, but didn't get rid of the ulcers. So they were kind of treating the symptoms without actually treating the root cause. And there was a big industry behind this, obviously, because the people selling antacids loved selling antacids because it made them money, and they didn't want to stop. So they weren't really interested in anyone else looking to find out what the root cause was. So what is the actual cause of this? It's Helicobacter pylori.
Of course. I know
Yes.
it well.
Yes, Helicobacter
That was
pylori.
my guess.
Should have made it a game show. We would have won.
Lock it in.
From now on, I'm just going to call it H. pylori because that's easier. Helicobacter,
That's
just
the street name if you're unaware, Luke.
If you're looking for a bit of H. pylori, come and see me.
that's how. Do you guys know how bacteria are named? That's how they're named.
What?
you should-
They're all named H. pylori.
They're all the same thing.
No, like think
You've got a bad case of H. pylori.
Which one?
No, which one?
There are actually lots. So if you like E. coli and stuff, you just take the first name and shorten it to a letter.
So like Eli. Eli.
No, E. coli is the
E.
shortened
Oh,
one.
okay. What does the E stand for?
Escherichia.
Ah.
That was going to be my guess.
If I see it written down, I can't, there's too many C's and H's and S's. I don't know. But yeah, so basically Helicobacter pylori, it's a spiral.
You mean
spiral-
H. Laurie?
H. pylori.
Hugh Laurie.
Hugh Laurie. It's actually what the show House was based on.
I've never watched House
No,
of
neither have I. Is that true or are you joking?
No, Hugh Laurie was in House.
Oh,
He
yes,
was
he
House.
Come on, you're the science guy.
That was
we
my
make
guess.
the jokes.
H. pylori, it's spiral, hence helio, which is Greek for spiral. If you didn't know.
That was going to be my guess.
That was.
I'm just going to stop telling you guys things.
I'm doing Greek on Duolingo.
More than 50% of the world's population is infected with H. pylori, so that means that one and a half
one
of
and
us
a
on
half
this
of
room.
us.
One and a half of
Yeah.
us.
Who is it? Which ones?
Well,
Definitely James.
Definitely one
James.
half of me.
Yeah. The reason that we're not all dying of stomach ulcers is because it's not necessarily infectious. So it can be undetected. I've forgotten the word. I'm going to butcher this name. Professor Wallery Jaworski of...
I think you can call him W. Scoff.
That was going to be my guess.
No,
Shut up, James.
Jaworski of the Jagiellonian
Fairfield.
University in Krakow investigated basically human feces from just toilets.
Oh, is this you? Corry loves to tell me. He loves to talk about eating human feces all the time. Like, whenever someone's like a little bit sad, he goes, I wrote my dissertation on eating human feces to improve your mood.
That's not at all what happened.
That is what you did. Did you not do a dissertation on eating poo to make yourself happy?
No, the conclusion of it was that eating poo could make you happy.
I'm not going to try it anytime soon. It's a weird
Well, not from any of
antidepressant. I'm prescribing you poo.
People do that. It's called an FMT. So the Polish guy. Is Krakow in Poland?
What? I don't know.
Is what in Poland?
You're the scientist.
Krakow. That's geography. That's not my area.
You're the scientist.
Okay.
Everything's science eventually, Corry.
This guy from Krakow investigated,
Krakow's.
Krakow's?
Sounds like you're saying Krakow's.
I cannot get a sentence out. Okay, so they call it sediments of gastric washings. Essentially, they took fecal matter and stuff from people's stomachs, and he investigated it. In 1899, he found a bacteria with a characteristic spiral shape. Our friend H. pylori, and he was the first to suggest a possible role of that organism in the pathogenesis of gastric diseases. Basically, he realized that this bacteria might cause those diseases.
He diagnosed the other undiagnosable.
No, because
It wasn't healthy.
it was in Polish, so everyone ignored it.
What? That's awful. What
Literally,
the hell?
it got put in the Handbook of Gastric Diseases, but it was written in Polish, so no one really paid attention.
That is so bad.
It's ridiculous, right?
Do you know
What?
Polish? I wouldn't know where to begin.
Yeah. This was in
Maybe he should
1899.
translate it then if he's discovered something so helpful.
Lazy.
So this was in 1899, and
Right.
it took about 80 years.
80 years? Is this one of these things where like we eventually found a thing and then we looked back through loads of journals and went, oh, this guy got it years ago and we ignored him?
He didn't get it. He was on the right track.
Right, okay.
But just don't write in Polish.
That's the message.
That's a message to you, Polish
Anyone
people.
from Poland? Unlearn your language.
So it's not only linked to ulcers, it's also linked to stomach cancer and other gastric diseases. So that was proved by Marshall and Warren. You guys have forgotten who they are, aren't they?
They are the
There's
doctors.
too many names.
They're the
and
doctors.
too many initials.
There's literally been 3 names.
They're the guys who couldn't diagnose half their patients.
Yeah,
correct?
so one of them was
Okay.
a pathologist, and the
And
other
then
one
they
was a
did.
Kalgoorlie man.
That is, one of them was from Carl, I don't know.
Kalgoorlie.
Kalgoorlie.
Thank God we have James here to
Kalgoorlie.
for his
translate.
fantastic
Kalgoorlie.
contribution to the
Kalgoorlie.
podcast.
Yeah, so you actually worked at a hostel in Fremantle. Is that not where?
A hostel?
That's
or a
where I went to
hospital?
school.
Is that where you went to school?
I went
yeah.
to school in Fremantle.
And did you get gastric diseases?
Did you ever meet Robert?
Not often.
Do you ever
Okay.
meet Robert
Oppenheim?
Robin Warren or Barry Marshall?
Probably down the bottle.
What does that mean?
What?
The bottle shop.
The bottles.
Like an
the
offie.
alcohol
An
store.
offie. Like an off license.
An
The offie.
Down the
offie.
Down the offie.
Down the office.
Okay.
Oh,
Carry
it's that
out
man who discovered the cause of gastric diseases in the offie.
Oh, he's
He's
buying some
Australian.
rum.
Oh.
Realistically.
Well, they all came from England, didn't they?
Oh, the criminals got sent there, yeah. Yeah. So how did they do this? Find out that this bacteria was responsible for all of these diseases. So basically it had been observed in 1979, a full 70 years after 80 years? A full 80 years. A full 80 years after our Polish friend found it. And Robin Warren researched it further with Barry Marshall from 1981. They then had a study in 1982 where they got 100 patients and they all had stomach ulcers, and they took swabs of their stomach and tried to grow H. pylori from it. And it took about 30.
Question: how do you get a swab of a stomach?
Ooh, yeah.
Colonoscopy.
Up the bum.
Up the bum.
Yes.
I should have guessed that.
Go up.
That
or-
should have been
Wait,
my
no,
guess.
you wouldn't go up the bum to get to the stomach. You go down the throat.
You could go either way. Endoscopy just means. Did I
Yeah,
say
but you'd have-
colonoscopy or endoscopy?
Maybe you said
colonoscopy.
Endoscopy. Endoscopy. Or
Have you seen those cows where they have a hole in the side of the stomach and
Yeah.
you put your whole hand in and you just grab
I just
some
reach
stomach?
some hay.
Yeah.
Put that over there.
Through the
No.
belly.
Yeah, cows are like one of the biggest causes of greenhouse gas.
Yeah, other than
Yeah.
James.
Other than
Other
me.
than James. So they didn't have any success for the first 30 I've heard between 30 and 34 patients. Yeah, until Easter weekend when
Jesus returned.
Yeah, so Jesus returned.
And he cured H. pylori for all of us. Thank you, Lord.
Yes, this is a religious podcast for our one Saviour, Jesus Christ.
Well, I would have hoped so.
That would have been. That was my
That's why
guess.
I'm here. Is that why you're here?
So they left the petri dishes just in the lab over Easter weekend because the lab techs had hospital work to get to and they couldn't be bothered to throw them out. And up until that point, they'd been throwing them out after 2 days, but because of the long weekend, they'd been sat there for about 4. So stuff grew. What had been happening was they'd just been throwing them out before it had a chance to grow.
Oh, silly billies.
So basically, with strep, what they thought they were looking for, it was only.
Sorry, what's strep?
It's
Streptococcal.
Yeah, like a type of bacteria.
The
so
thing that strep cells get rid of.
Bacteria.
So they thought they were looking for one kind of bacteria that grew after 2 days, and if it hadn't grown in 2 days, you throw it away. This takes quite a long time to grow.
Is that like a normal thing? Is that like that you would chuck stuff out after 2 days?
Not to chuck stuff out after 2 days, but if there's no point in keeping something for longer than you need to, especially when you're working with microbiology, because you could have any kind of pathogen growing in there, unless you specifically tried to get rid of it. So, entirely by accident, they started growing H. pylori. They checked again, and it turned out they had 13 patients that had full-on ulcers, and they all had H. pylori growing in their stomachs, or in their small intestines, rather. So they basically kind of proved that was related to stomach ulcers in some way. But because it was such a small study, no one was really going for it. You know, everyone was like, no, it's still stress. We'll still give them the antacids like we were supposed to. So yeah, everyone was skeptical. And these guys, they like to try and spin a story from it. They're saying that everyone was against us, you know. No one wanted to believe us, and we were right. We knew we were right the whole time. But realistically, everyone was just displaying like normal scientific skepticism, because they had a study with 100 people. It wasn't.
Sure.
It wasn't.
And also, they only discovered it because they forgot to throw their stuff away. Like, it's not like they're clever.
They did have the right idea. They just didn't know what they were looking for exactly. So many stories from science come from that. Just accidentally discovering something. Yeah. Blue tack was accidental.
Yep.
No.
Yep.
100%.
And sticky notes.
And blue tack was first made as something to try and clean things.
I don't know
it?
about blue tack.
Yeah.
Scientists are so dumb.
They're so dumb. Yeah. In their original paper, they said that most stomach ulcers were caused by bacteria and not stress and spicy food. And to prove their point beyond belief, they needed to do more testing. So they were testing on pigs and rats and mice, as you usually do, but it wasn't really going anywhere. So Marshall realized, well, I'm going to need to test on humans at some point. But
here it comes.
On himself.
But no one let him do that. He's not allowed to test on other humans. So he decided, okay, I'll just
give myself stomach ulcers.
Do it to myself. So he took a patient of his, took some stuff from his stomach, grew some of the bacteria,
and then ate it.
Like put it in a nice broth in a beaker and just downed it.
Yep.
So incredibly Australian.
Ulcer
How is that Australian?
It just seems like an Australian thing to do. Like, well, I can't do the accent, but I can't get anyone to do this, so I'll just.
I can't get anyone to do this. I'll just put it in my sapper.
So yeah, he didn't tell his wife that he'd done this, and he was quite infectious, and he had kids as well.
I always tell my wife when I've infected myself with H. pylori. It's the first thing I do.
Who wouldn't?
Text my wife. All right, wifey.
Well, that's not true, Luke, because you said it was weird to text about a cold sore.
Right. Okay. You know when people break up via text, and that's weird. It's like that's the same thing to like get a text about I've got herpes.
No, like hey,
just
be careful. I have herpes.
Okay.
Like
I want to clip that, just that bit. You leaning forward into your mic and going, "Be careful, I have herpes." Oh God, now there's one of me. Oh, damn it, James, you say it. Go on.
No.
All of us almost certainly have herpes.
In our
what have you been doing?
Wait, what?
Well, I've had chicken pox. I assume both of you had.
Yes.
That strain of herpes.
Is that herpes?
Yes. Have either of you had kissing disease?
Sorry, but you said
Epstein-Barr virus.
You said almost all of us almost certainly have
all
present tense herpes.
Yes, it'll still be in your system.
What?
You get away from me.
Either that or you're going to be immune to it.
So if I was to go around London every day and go, get away from me, you've got herpes, I would be correct in that.
Almost certainly.
Almost certainly correct.
You've got herpes. You got a cold sore the other day.
That was
You've
a
got
pimple.
herpes.
But I did have chickenpox.
You've got herpes.
Yeah. There's like 6.
I just love that out of context. You've got herpes.
You've got herpes.
Yeah.
You've got herpes.
Yeah.
Everybody gets herpes. Yeah, there's like 6 strains. One of them's chickenpox. One of them's genital herpes. One of them's that kissing disease that kids get.
No.
And like cooties.
Oh yes.
What's it called? Epstein-Barr
glandular
virus.
fever.
Glandular fever. That's herpes.
Oh, I've never heard it called kissing disease before.
Kissing disease. That's
yeah,
cute.
that's a cute little name.
Cuter than
It
glandular
sounds better than
fever.
glandular fever.
Yeah.
Oh, it's so bad. Your liver can swell up.
Glandular sounds like the name of like an old granny. Like, I'm going over
I'm going over Glandula's house. Be right back.
Like
She's got a
Angela.
fever.
Like Angela with glandular fever.
I thought it sounded like a drag queen. Glandula.
Oh, it does.
Oh, yeah,
That's
maybe,
good,
yeah.
Glangella.
But
Glamorous
do drag
Angela.
queens not have just granny names? I don't know. Maybe.
Oh.
Drag queens definitely have herpes.
James.
Well, that's actually not offensive because everyone
Because everyone has herpes.
Yeah.
So actually inclusive, Corry.
So back to Barry Marshall.
Yes.
He downed his broth with bacteria.
Thank you for the sound effect,
I'll be
James.
the soundboard.
So so he downed it, and a week later he developed gastritis, which is the precursor to getting stomach ulcers. So there's this story. He told his wife after about 5 days.
Well, how good of him.
Yeah.
After 5 days.
After 5 days.
Not straight away. Oh,
I suppose you don't have to tell your wife until you're sure it's worked. Like, it's not relevant information until then.
He said like the next day he felt quite ill. He was lying on his stomach vomiting.
Well.
Right.
Yeah, not good.
You know when you go home and your wife says, "Oh, what'd you do at work today?" Wouldn't
Gave myself
I gave myself a stomach
H. pylori.
Yeah. Wouldn't that be like on the top of the list?
After about a week, he...
I like how James is the oracle for... You know when you go home and you tell
when
your
you
wife...
tell your wife, I'm never going to go home and tell my wife anything.
James is gay, everyone.
Truthfulness is important in a relationship, James. You have to tell your wife
Okay,
things.
my wife.
You should probably tell your wife about your boyfriend.
Oh, shit.
And that you're gay.
She'll be angry. And my stomach ulcer.
So many secrets.
Wait, are you Dr. Barry Marshall?
I'm not from Kalgoorlie, but I did go to Fremantle.
And I do have herpes.
And I do have herpes.
So, he was vomiting. He had halitosis.
And his wife didn't suspect anything.
Then after about a week, he went into his own lab and biopsied his own gut. And yeah, he had the bacteria in his gut. And
Did he give himself
I'm so glad we got that on camera.
Like he put a thing down his own throat to get an endoscopy.
I don't think he did it himself. I think he probably had his lab techs help him out. There is actually a story that I was going to do for another podcast episode of a guy giving himself a heart catheter. Or something along those lines. Yeah, the guy that invented the heart catheter got fired from his hospital for performing on himself.
Bloody hell, they're all performing on themselves, aren't they?
It's really, you'd think there aren't people that are willing to be tested on. All the scientists that just do it to themselves.
But the legal thing is the problem, isn't it? There's so many layers of like...
yeah.
If you just do it yourself and you find it, then you go, right, cool, here we go.
Well, I'd always heard the story of like a classic one of people experimenting on themselves, and it's actually much more interesting than it first seemed to be.
Save it for another episode.
Yeah. So studies went on beyond that after he'd kind of proved in himself that there was the possibility of it. In 2005, he won the Nobel Prize along with Robin Warren. He basically discovered you could treat ulcers with antibiotics and Pepto-Bismol.
And no one thought to try that?
No, you don't want to waste antibiotics. So think about it. If you
doesn't grow on trees, Luke. God.
I mean, it literally grows out of the floor. It's from mushrooms.
A lot of them are produced by funguses or molds, just to fight off bacteria.
Yeah, so, I told you, didn't I, James?
Anyway, no, you wouldn't want to treat anything with antibiotics unless you're pretty sure it's bacterial, because otherwise it'd be a waste of antibiotics, and it really messes with your gut because it kills all the bacteria in there.
Oh, the good bacteria.
Yeah. That's good bacteria. So Pepto-Bismol. Do you know what Pepto-Bismol is?
Isn't the cure for stomach ulcers?
That was going to be my guess.
Is that not what your therapist said to you, Luke?
No, it's not.
Is it not?
My therapist rarely talks about Pepto-Bismol to me.
Really?
Yeah.
It's very strange.
Mostly
it really helps
childhood trauma.
Your therapist talks to you about his childhood trauma.
Unless your childhood trauma was stomach ulcers.
Yeah, it could be.
Oh, you could have fixed this with some Pepto-Bismol.
Thanks, therapist.
So there was a $3 billion industry behind treating stomach ulcers beforehand. Obviously, there were a lot of people that didn't want to change the way that they were being treated, because it would have gone from endoscopy into infectious diseases. completely switching the kind of department.
The industry, and also I'm guessing that's more of like an American problem because they profit off of healthcare, whereas we don't.
Yes, but also the people providing.
The drug companies.
Yeah,
yeah,
the drug companies. So the people that were behind antacids.
Not just drug companies. The drug companies actually would gain from this because they can now prescribe antibiotics. Would
they were
not?
prescribing antacids beforehand. And that would drop majorly.
Okay.
Yeah, so Pepto-Bismol is a similar kind of thing. Obviously, because it contains bismuth, they started using that, which just...
What is bismuth?
It's a metal.
It's metal?
It's metal. It's actually a really pretty metal. It's...
In what way? Can I Google it?
Yeah, Google it. It's really... Get a picture up.
Is it pink?
It's lots of colours.
Ooh.
Siri, show me pictures of bismuth.
Oh.
It sounds like a really depressing seaside town.
I
couldn't find any matches.
That's the most gorgeous thing. What?
Yeah, it's beautiful, right?
Wait.
What?
Oh!
Yeah, so it's multicolored and
it's very gay.
Yeah.
Wow.
It's like multicolored and it's got
Can we
a
get
really...
some? Is it cheap?
It's not... I mean, we could probably order some.
It's gorgeous.
Oh, wow.
You need to go... If you're listening to this in audio, you need to go and Google bismuth.
So it's using
so
bismuth
cool.
salts, obviously. So it's not bismuth itself. It's probably a bismuth ion. But that kills the bacteria. And that completely changed everything.
So I'm guessing the reason that it destroyed some or annoyed the drug companies is because they were prescribing antacids on an ongoing basis, like forever.
Yeah.
Until if your ulcers ever cured themselves, and now they've got a cure, it's like they can charge you for a few weeks, but after that you're not a customer anymore.
Exactly. So you find
what a depressing thing about that.
You find that a lot in medicine, that people aren't willing to find cures for things
because they want money.
Yeah, exactly. So yeah, he won the Nobel Prize. He experimented on himself, and
he won $1 million. I'm guessing as well for the Nobel Prize. That's the prize, isn't it? $1 million.
Yes.
For eating something.
$1 million is what you win for winning the Nobel Prize.
I'd give myself a stomach ulcer for $1 million.
I absolutely would.
You guys can't. Someone's already done it. You got to do something else.
I'm gonna get back in time.
Yeah.
I'll give myself herpes.
You can't give it to yourself.
Get it for someone else. And also, I don't think anyone's going to win the give you a Nobel Prize for giving yourself herpes.
I have herpes, please.
Please give me $1 million.
So basically, Barry went on to work some more with H. pylori.
H. pylori just sounds like a person. I can't get that out of my head.
Really?
Barry went on to work with H. pylori.
You'd rather I say Heliobacter?
Please do. Every time I want you to say the full thing.
That sounds less human.
I'm glad you said
Heliobacter. Sounds like an Avengers and
H. pylori. It sounds like an author. It sounds like an author.
It's H.P. Lovecraft. So he developed a breath test for H. pylori, Heliobacter, which involves using radioactive carbon. So
of course, that was going to be my guess.
Basically, what you do is, if you want to do this, guys at home,
I do. Cannot
Please.
wait.
Get some radioactive carbon.
I've got some downstairs, I think.
Really?
Yeah.
Great. So basically, you take the radioactive carbon and you put it into a compound that's digested by H. pylori. Then you have the person eat it.
They eat radioactive carbon?
Well, you put it in their body in some way. Doesn't really matter if
sure.
It or not. So it just needs to get to their stomach. So then, if you then test the breath, it will have carbon dioxide, but it'll be radioactive carbon dioxide if they're infected with the H. pylori.
That's like
and then they'll get cancer from the radiation.
Well, no, it's not that much radiation. There's radiation and there's radioactive carbon in a lot of stuff.
Like what?
Well, it's how carbon dating works.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. So there's a general level of radiation.
Is it one of the radiations that like can escape the body?
Yeah, it'll probably be
gamma radiation.
So gamma radiation can pass through the body. Alpha and beta really mess you up if they're inside. So
it will hopefully be gamma. Otherwise, you lose your stomach ulcer, but you get cancer, and it's not a good trade.
Well, it depends.
I'd rather just have antacids and not cancer.
Antacids.
What?
Lots of ants.
Yes, we've done this.
Have we done? Oh, we did do this, didn't we?
Yeah. That was the joke I made. That definitely wasn't serious. Does it come from ants?
So Barry Marshall is now using Heliobacter to find new flu vaccines.
Good for him.
You heard about this?
I recall something.
I think it was on the front page of The Guardian, was it not?
So after trying and failing to find one for H. pylori, as in a vaccine for H. pylori, he couldn't because apparently, according to him, it just hijacks your immune system as soon as you're infected with it. He decided to attach influenza proteins, which is what the flu is, to Heliobacter and just infect people with that. So then your body starts fighting the Heliobacter whilst also making antibodies for the the influenza proteins,
Sure.
which basically makes you immune to the flu.
And lose your stomach ulcers?
No, this is
another thing?
This is another thing. He's cured the stomach ulcers. He's now using it for...
I want influenza now.
We've moved on. He's cured the stomach ulcers. He's trying to use this to make a flu vaccine.
Right.
For the flu.
Right.
To stop people from getting the flu.
Right.
Influenza.
Yes.
His idea is to put it in a yogurt and just have people eat that.
Eat the flu.
Eat the flu.
And
then they can't get infected by the flu.
So it's really healthy yogurt.
Really healthy yogurt.
Me and Jay, well, we're all screwed. We're all vegan. We can't eat it.
Oh, no.
It's going to get the flu.
That
Can
way
you put it in like soya yogurt? That'd be good.
Soy yogurt. Yeah, that's fine.
Is that where your cult comes from?
I had a dream that they had vegan Yakults. It was really...
I really hope they do one day.
It was really good.
Have you ever had Yakult?
Don't think so.
Very good for you. So the reason he wants to do this in yogurt is because right now flu vaccines are really, really difficult to make and then get out. It takes you like a full year. So when you're being vaccinated for 1 year's flu, it's actually the flu from the previous year. Because it changes so quickly.
Yes.
There's also now a whole foundation for undiagnosed diseases to find more undiagnosed diseases and diagnose them.
All those undiagnosed
Is that not
ones.
just called science?
I mean...
There's now an initiative to find things we don't know.
You're saying this is I'm the one who decided it? I also
As the legend goes, he's still finding things to this day.
Basically, people just kind of write off... There's so many diseases that people just write off. They're like, oh, they're faking it because we can't tell why. Like, there was this woman that just... I think we all know why you're depressed, Luke.
Do we? I don't.
You haven't had any Yakult.
God damn it. Where's my Yakult?
All right, is that the show? Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you guys feel you've learned a lot?
Oh, yes.
I've learned a lot of it, yeah, definitely.
Thank you for listening. If you enjoyed this episode, please leave a review, a positive one. Subscribe. We've got a new episode out every Monday. We've got references in the description. You can find us at SCI GUYS Pod on Twitter, Instagram, and YouTube.
You can.
You can find me at Not Corry.
You can find Luke at Luke Cutforth.
And you can find James, probably in his room.
Yeah.
Doesn't come out.
Yeah. Or at Jampkin. Yeah.
Yeah. Bye.